So 2 minutes past it. I'll tell you what. Let's get started. We seem to be plateauing on the numbers that are coming in. Oh no, there's a few more. Yeah, so we're here today to on the Runecast webinar, and we're here very much to talk about the Centre for Internet Security and also what Runecast can help you do in order to kind of help you get to a compliant state and help improve your security posture. I'm joined on the call today by Michelle Peterson and Adam Montville from the CIS. So let's get cracking. Let's move straight onto the first slide. So Michelle, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you. So I'm Michelle Peterson. I am with CIS, and I am the product owner for our CIS Benchmarks and their derivatives. I've been with CIS for a number of years, since somewhat of the beginning of a small group of us working at CIS. Used to be over on the other side of the house with the business services side, and then moved over to the more technical side here a few years back. I live in Kalispell, Montana, a very beautiful place. Love doing outdoor activities, and paddleboarding is my area of choice right now. So, the summer.
I tried that once, and I was just really good at falling off. I'm really good at falling off things into water. So yeah, I'm going to stay away from Montana, I think.
So yeah, that's a little bit about me. So thanks.
Awesome, and I guess we'll kick on. And Adam, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. I'm glad to be here today. I'm Adam Montville, Chief Product Architect for the Center for Internet Security Security Best Practices side of the house. Basically, what I get to do is help everybody with the tooling that supports definition of security best practices, from the CIS controls to the CIS benchmarks and standards work as to how to automate those things, because best practices are really just documents, and then you need something to help you get there in your enterprise.
Absolutely.
And I support all the tooling that we have internally, and clearly I support vendors as well, who are gracious enough to be our members, so that we can get our content to you faster, and therefore you can get it to your customers faster as well. I've been in information security for about 20 years, starting with cryptographic algorithms and things of that nature, kind of moved up the stack to compliance, and here I am now. So I'll leave it at that, and we can get to the conversation.
Awesome. So just the hairdo, is that because you've got 20 years in InfoSec?
Yeah, potentially.
InfoSec that have a full head of hair.
Yeah, and I haven't had to complain about not being able to get my hair done in the time of COVID, which has been a benefit. So
yeah, the last webinar, you should have seen the state of my hair. It was not good at all.
Sure.
Okay, cool. So just a quick introduction to myself. So some of you may know who I am. So my name's Kev Johnson. I've been with Runecast for about 6 months now. So I'm a systems engineer here. So that means I kind of work with our sales team to make sure that we're doing the right things by our customers, helping our customers to improve their security, their compliance, and various other things as well. So prior to Runecast, I worked for VMware, where I spent 18 months or so working for the Cloud Platform Business Unit as a technical marketing architect. And then prior to that, I headed up a team of consultants for about 6.5, 7 years, and kind of focused on the kind of the infrastructure, the virtualization, but also to a certain extent the security side of things. There's some extra stuff on there. There's my blog, the podcast that I take part in, and also you can get me on Twitter as well. If anyone needs to get hold of me after this event, if you want to get hold of a copy of the slides or anything and you can't get them for some reason, reach out to me on Twitter. I'm at Kev_Johnson. My DMs are open. Please don't send me anything nasty. But that's the easiest way to get hold of me. I could give you my Runecast email address and you could probably guess it, but I probably read Twitter more than my email. So there we go. And kind of on that note, we're just kind of, I don't have tons and tons and tons of slides to go through, which is a joy for me, but I imagine also for the folks that are participating in the call as well. So I just kind of wanted to really kind of chat around what CIS is and the problems that you help to solve for customers, and then we'll kind of get from there to how Runecast Analyzer can help, and then I'll show you how easy it is to get those kind of insights, and then what you have the insights into what you need to do to get to a compliant state. So I guess the first question I really had was, CIS. Who are CIS? What is CIS? I'm going to throw the mic open to you two folks there.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess I'll start with that, and then maybe we'll dive into benchmarks a little more deeply because Michelle's here. So CIS, Center for Internet Security. I think actually this year is our 20th birthday, right? Like,
wow.
We've been around for 20 years now, as of November of this year anyway.
Okay.
When we first started out, so 20 years ago, that's the year 2000, right? And we had enterprises trying to figure out how to do secure configurations at the time. And you had all the different enterprises that were doing the same work, essentially. Everybody was trying to figure out how do you secure Windows at what was big then, 95 and NT even back then and all that, right?
Oh, so many horror stories.
Or whatever it was, yes, very many. So what CIS did was it brought together, people of a like mind, essentially, to come together and define probably an 80 or 90% solution for secure configurations for these different technologies, right? And made that available for free and said, here, take it, do good with it. Now you don't have to do all this work. And we still kind of have that today. So if you fast forward now to 20 years from, 20 years from then, here we are present day. We've got CIS security best practices. We have a control framework with the CIS controls. We have CIS benchmarks to help with configuration management. And those things are at their core still free, right? They're documents we put out there, they're free. Now, I'll be the first to admit they represent work, right? So what we also do is work with vendors such as yourself and others to get our content into your tools so that it's less work and faster to get implemented out there. I don't know, I can leave it at that for now. Like I could go into a very long history if you want, but we can talk a little more about benchmarks if you'd like.
Okay. So I guess one of the other questions that kind of comes off what you said there is you mentioned the CIS controls and CIS benchmarks. What's the difference there? Yeah,
good question. So the way I look at it is we support essentially enterprise security programs. Okay, and security programs, like anything else, every security program is going to have kind of the same look and feel. Essentially, you're going to be doing asset management, configuration management, vulnerability management, incident response, and all the things that are required for that. The CIS controls is kind of a higher level document that kind of details how you should implement and operate your security program. Then the CIS benchmarks really are recommendations for secure configurations for the technologies you operate. So the CIS controls, I think it's 5.1, control 5 is about configuration management. And in there, it says, for every technology you operate, make sure you have a standard enterprise config for it, that addresses security. And that's where the benchmarks come in. You get a head start with that.
So the benchmarks are kind of product specific rather than a more kind of like overarching view, and they plug into the controls then, I guess.
That's right. That's exactly
awesome.
Right.
Awesome. So one of the question that I had really around CIS. So in my past, I've worked across many technologies with in terms of trying to deal with security and compliance. And you hear the same terms time and time again. So whenever I was dealing with anything that was military, it would all be like, oh yeah, DISA Stig, everything's DISA Stig. When you're talking US federal, everyone's kind of looking at NIST and PCI DSS, HIPAA. These are all kind of very industry specific standards. Where does CIS fit into that?
Yeah, that's a broad question, right? So so you mentioned a couple of different levels there of security concerns, I guess I'll say. So you mentioned PCI, you mentioned HIPAA. We could talk about ISO 27000 series, COBIT. Monetary Authority of Singapore has one. Here in the United States, FFIEC has one. I think they're about the financial industry, right? There's all these frameworks. I've analyzed, I think, more than 14 of them over the course of my career. And they all pretty much say the same things, okay? Some of them pertain to specific types of data, right? So HIPAA here in the United States, right? That's all about PHI, healthcare information, essentially. Then PCI is all about credit card data, right? And then the CIS controls is a framework that's generally applicable primarily to the data of the enterprise. So what's proprietary to you? What data is critical to running your business? That's really what it pertains to. However, you can also apply the controls in support of PCI, HIPAA, ISO 27000, COVID, any of the others, because they map very cleanly into that. Now I forgot what the other part of your question was.
Oh no, that was pretty much it, really. It was perfect. It was more, whenever I have these conversations with our customers and our prospective customers, there are some who are very, very aware of CIS, and there are some who they kind of, they reel off the standard. You listed a whole bunch of them there, and it's kind of like, okay, so where does CIS fit in? And I think the way I kind of look at CIS is, even if just because you might not work in a regulated industry that states, okay, well, you must do all of these things, that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't need to be doing something to improve your security posture. And I guess that's kind of where I see the benchmarks fitting in there. And because as time has gone on, products have become generally more secure out of the box, but we're still not up to that magic level where you can just do a default deployment and everything is secured. And that's kind of where I see specifically the CIS benchmarks in how we work with them with Runecast Analyzer. And I don't know, maybe Michelle, is there anything you could expand on that with?
Yeah, definitely. And even going back to what you were talking about and related to Adam, where that likeness is. So of course we have a lot of federal customers as well, and with the DISA Stigs and such, and everyone's always wondering, what is the difference between the two? And then where they don't have coverage in a lot of these, we are referenced. So they're saying use us, and where they don't. So what we've done, one of the recent things that we've also done within CIS and our development of benchmarks is to do some mappings between the Stigs and the existing CIS benchmarks so that people have that diff basically between the two, and they can implement and still meet, but having that consensus-based approach. So that I think is the real key here, is that out of the box, sure, the vendors are a little bit more security-minded. However, they're still wanting that data out of the box to have things turned on that may be more of a security breach kind of an area where it could be more open for someone to get in. And so that's where CIS will note, what the default setting is, why you should implement this or change it from the default. It gives you more of that detail around it rather than just believing in the vendor that they're doing the best for you, or in giving you that ability to understand the reasoning behind it. So that's kind of the key to it, aside from the consensus part of it, is that it is prescriptive guidance. So it's not just saying do this and do that. It's really telling you why to do it, how to do it, how to remediate, right? So you're not being stuck with just, well, I guess they said to do it, here's why we do it. So I think that's the key thing with CIS that makes it a little bit different, that where people will utilize various resources, but kind of resonate towards what CIS is saying, because we do give that additional detail. And which is why they're so long.
It takes so long.
And going back to Adam with the manual piece, right? Nobody wants to read a 1,000-page document with 500 recommendations to figure out what exactly they want to do.
And the thing is, with a lot of those standards as well, if you look at PCI DSS, for example, the actual standard documentation itself, and yeah, I've read it because I couldn't sleep one night, and it didn't help. But yeah, you read the documentation, and that standard is not written specifically for Vsphere or for NSX or for AWS or any of these things. It's written from a very, very high level, technology agnostic, you don't get any guidance as to, well, how do I audit whether I'm compliant or not? And so this is, this is another thing that I think is I really like about the benchmarks. I think it's the information, the quality of the information that you get there is just fantastic. I guess I did have like a framework of questions. I've already jumped around all over the place, which is what I tend to do. Yeah, so just a quick reminder to folks, we haven't had any questions in as yet. So if you've got any questions so far, please put them into the chat and we'll deal with them at the end. I guess, so we've kind of covered the fact that there are overlaps between various different security standards, and kind of where CIS fits in there, because you've got those mappings. I was reading a document about the CIS controls, how they can help with things like GDPR compliance as well. And obviously I'm in the UK, so GDPR is something it has been a bit something of a hot topic over the past few years, even though really it's just the Data Protection Act that we already had. So if you were doing all of those things correctly in the first place, then you'd be fine. But everyone was terrified with the prospect of the fines and things that you get hit with. So yeah, I think that's really important. So one of the other things in fact I think I've already covered this, but in environments where maybe you do need to go to a specific standard, maybe you've got to be audited against PCI DSS or HIPAA or any of these different standards. But maybe you also want to kind of think, okay, well, maybe what else can I do to improve my security posture? Or maybe you're a small, you're a small corner shop and you run everything off one box. And what do I do to make sure that I am less vulnerable to potential attack vectors than the type of companies who have a security team that employs 100 people? And again, I think CIS can really help there. So I guess just kind of mindful of time already. Blimey, we're doing pretty well. So one of the things that I've learned a lot about CIS in my time with Runecast, because I was one of those people who I'd seen the logo, and in my time at VMware, I know I spoke with some of the folks who were behind their specific security configuration guide. And they mentioned CIS, and a lot of their customers did as well. So I've learned lots about it as we've kind of brought this to market with Runecast. And the main reason we kind of came out with the CIS benchmarks, or we started working towards these, was because we had so many customers that were asking for them. And I think that really speaks to how powerful having all this work done that is freely and widely available, as you said, Adam, is really important. And this is why organizations like Runecast really want to work with organizations like CIS. And I know there's a whole bunch of different vendors out there who are CIS certified, Runecast Analyzer being one of them, or Runecast being one of them for Vsphere and for AWS. There's other organizations like Amazon Web Services, Chef, Google, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, Rapid7, Tenable. All of these are monsters in their industry that are certified with CIS. So I guess how does the certification program work, and how do other vendors get involved with CIS from the controls and from the benchmarks perspective?
Yeah, definitely. So certification is a level of our membership that we allow vendors to integrate the CIS resources into a commercial product. So it's meeting, expanding their reach to their customers with an industry standard. And many of their customers are requesting that alignment with CIS. So whenever you mention, even your certifications with like AWS and the foundations, right? That's a huge area right now for just being able to secure just generally in the cloud, right? So of course that goes back to the shared responsibility model, right? You're responsible for part of it, the CSP is responsible for part of it. So, but no one has eyes on it all the time, and it's ever changing, especially in the cloud. And so having this ability to integrate the CIS benchmarks in just allows that tooling to go one step further to provide your customers that kind of continuous monitoring or continuous, ability to check for that drift, et cetera. and adjust as necessary with many of the tools that are out there. So CIS saw that need a number of years ago right, we aren't in the really the business of developing competitive tools, not to say that we don't, not to, you know, bring on Adam, because he's doing a lot of work there, right, and to integrate with our vendors and do a lot more work around that. But it gave you the ability to meet your customers' needs using our resources and help sustain CIS as a nonprofit as well. So that process is really about you aligning with the recommendations within a CIS benchmark, proving that to CIS so that we can actually see that your tool is checking according to those CIS recommendations, and then us being able to award you that certification in order to integrate and commercially sell utilizing the CIS brand and resources.
Awesome. And I saw some of the documentation and the efforts that went into you know, into achieving that certification standards. And it's by no means just here, we're going to write you a check, you're going to give us certification. There's a lot of work goes into that stuff. So I was really proud of the team at Runecast when I found out that we'd been certified in June. There's also something that I've seen mentioned around called CIS Workbench. Are you able to talk any more about what that is, how people can get involved with that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's a huge part for us. So go ahead, Adam, if you want.
No, all right, I'll take it. It's fine. Either of us could answer this one, so I mean, why not, right? But that's one of the applications that I was talking about at the beginning of this session. So Workbench really is where actually anybody can register for that. So you don't even need to be a CIS member. You can be just somebody who's interested in contributing to the development of security best practices.
Okay.
It's workbench.cisecurity.org. You can go there, join any of a number of different communities that we have. These are the consensus communities that help develop these best practices. And it's really where all the work gets done at the front end, if you will, right? So there's some new technology that comes out. Everybody starts using it. You know, we could talk about, you know, all the work from home that's happening right now, and you know, the proliferation of Zoom and other related kinds of technologies, right?
Yeah.
You might want to start thinking about configurations for that. Well, we have communities now for that, so they're doing that work to help make sure that we have coverage for that technology in the field, and that's really what Workbench is about.
Awesome. And I know there's at least one of our guys is contributing quite heavily to the Vsphere side of things there. I did sign up yesterday. I didn't get around to logging in and taking a look, but I guess that kind of falls onto another question, which is, you know, these benchmarks are versioned. So you know, there's like the CIS benchmark for Vsphere 6.5. And that, you know, these are versions. So what goes into making a next version of those benchmarks? Because they've got to be, you know, they're pretty involved pieces of work. How long does it take to turn those kind of things around?
Yeah, it can range. So we have a whole process that stands behind our development. So of course, it's the market need, right? Stakeholders requesting certain coverage, right? It's also the need for subject matter experts to assist with the development piece. So in scoping that out and getting that initial draft. So when Adam talks about remote work and newer types of technologies that we may be looking at developing, you know, we need an initial draft benchmark. And so we need that assistance to start that process. So those take a little bit longer to move along, whereas some of our more standard technologies, you know, our Linux, our Windows, etc., we can duplicate what we already have, right, and then update them according to the latest version release. So we've got a set of those that are kind of our highest priority benchmarks, and those are done. You know, we try to, this year we're really focusing on getting those out within 90 days from the vendor release. So just yesterday we released the Windows 10 2004 release, which, you know, so that was pretty quick turnaround from when they actually released, because it didn't really happen in the 4th month, but, you know.
Yeah.
Well, just to give you an idea, right? So as soon as that's starting to come out, we try to, build up those vendor relationships as well, although we're vendor neutral, because they are the experts, right? We want their involvement. So when we have more involvement, it moves faster. When we don't, and it's a little slower and more dependent on a single person or, 2 or 3 folks, it can take a lot longer. So it's really dependent on that community being active and moving it along.
Awesome. I guess so one of the other things that kind of it vaguely ties in with that, and let's go there. So there's the Foundation Benchmark for AWS, and clearly AWS are bringing services online faster than they can think up names for the services. So I guess you're always playing catch up, but in terms of having those capabilities to bring those subject matter experts on board and get them to help figure out what is a secure configuration and what are the implications of, because in securing something, there's always the possibility that there's a trade-off in functionality. So you can lock something down really hard, you can pull the network cable out, you can pull the power cable out, it's really secure, then encase it in concrete, and then nobody's hacking that for a while, but it's not very usable at that point. So there's all these kind of things. So we need the experts to help, and nobody can be an expert in everything. And I know some really good folks who work for AWS, and just the idea that they have to be experts in even a small subset of those services is terrifying, frankly. But yeah, that's all good. Oh, we are starting to get some questions in, so that's all good stuff. What else did we have to cover? Is there anything else that you two wanted to specifically talk about in terms of CIS?
Well, I think just relative to what you were just talking about with just the foundation. So we do have, the AWS, the Azure, we have the Oracle, and Google out there all for foundations. And what we've been focusing on here in the last month or so is really how do we break out those services a little bit further so that benchmark doesn't turn into a benchmark for 300 plus services, right?
Yeah.
So kind of breaking that out, and that foundational really sticking with kind of that high level shared responsibility. What do you need when you're just generally running in the cloud? Not really, what are the minimum services you would need to turn on? Not everything inside of that benchmark. So I just want to note that's where we're looking to go, is to have, like a compute benchmark, right? That would cover like EBS and EC2, let's say in AWS. Where, and kind of roll across those, and then containers, right? So we'll break out certain ones that would be specific. So now we have, of course, the EKS, right? And we have GKS. So we've got these Kubernetes standalone benchmarks for those services, but we'll still integrate those into a container high-level benchmark of what you need to do at a minimum. And we're also working closely with the vendors to say, in general, should you enable this or disable, and not to have to maintain like the 10 or so settings that fall underneath there. Just keep them disabled unless you need them, type of approach in that. So
it's a nice idea, isn't it? I'm not sure how much that works in the real world, but this is where things like the benchmarks really come into their own. I guess at that point, I'm just going to very quickly show folks how easy it is to check your Vsphere environments and also your AWS environments against these benchmarks using Runecast Analyzer, because I guess that's why I'm wearing a purple polo shirt in an office that is way too hot for this polo shirt. But so as an example, here's my demo environment. What I've got in here is I've got some vCenter servers, I've got an AWS account, some various other bits and bobs. So the first thing that we need to do is I just need to go into the knowledge profiles, and I just need to turn on the CIS benchmark. There's obviously a whole bunch of other stuff in there as well, but by all means turn it all on. But what you'll no doubt do is you'll see even more red than you really want to see. So we turn that function on, and then we just run a quick analysis. We'll just do this. In fact, yes, why not? We'll do them all. While that's running, we can see down here, because we've turned on the CIS benchmark, we now get this security compliance for CIS in here. So just as an example, I'm just going to come back here and show you. We've got 3 vCenter servers. We've got a vCenter 6, 6.5, and a 6.7, and we also have this AWS environment as well. So hopefully this shouldn't take too long. But from here, we can see the various different CIS benchmarks that are available. So there's the 6.7 and the 6.5 for Vsphere. Is there a version 7 coming anytime soon? Michelle's nodding.
I just needed to unmute myself, but my mouse seemed to disappear. Yes, we would like to see that. So we were able to bring on someone earlier this year who can, internal to CIS, that can help move that forward, because that is an area where we're a little behind, and we're planning to catch up there. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's great. I mean, as I said, it's just actually getting all of that information, compiling it all together and making it usable. It's a significant effort. So I totally appreciate that. We do sometimes get asked why Runecast doesn't have a CIS benchmark for Vsphere 7, and I just wanted to check that we weren't missing a treat somewhere. So we can select 6.5 or 6.7, or we've also got the AWS Foundations benchmark. So we'll just stick with 6.7, and then let's just filter out all these passes. In fact, I'm not going to be able to, because all of them are passes, aren't they? Brilliant. Someone's been tweaking my environment. Brilliant. Okay, so what we actually have here for the Vsphere side of things, as we can see, the CIS benchmarks break things down into recommendation sections. And this is another thing that I really like about the CIS approach over PCI DSS, etc., is, you might want to just consider in terms of how you deploy your environments as to how, tie your security in with the way, so make sure you've got security baked in when you're doing your installation, when you're setting up your comms, when you're setting up your logging, and you can break it down into much smaller chunks that way. And this is really helpful from that perspective. We got anything broken on 6.5? Let's see. Yeah, we go. We've got lots of red there. This is the environment I like to play around with. And there we go. There's our analysis just completed. So we've got lots of failures in. Oh no, there we go. It was just because the analysis was running. So we've got lots of failures in here, and we've got things like, make sure ESXi is properly patched. Now you would hope that people would be patching their environments, but I know for a fact from my time with VMware, I used to work with Mike Foley and Bob Plankers in the Vsphere security team, and the rants that if you could get them in a bar after work, ply them with booze and just say, tell me all about patching, and then just step back and watch them go. It's always great fun. But yeah, so as we mentioned earlier, one of the things I really like about the CIS approach is we have this capability to audit. So we're showing you how you could manually audit each of these settings, and then we're telling you, this is what you need to do in order to remediate. These are the impacts. So it's not like a high-level security officer is coming to you and saying, okay, you need to make all of these changes, or you need to do this particularly arcane thing, and I'm not going to tell you how you need to apply it to your environment. You just need to apply by this standard. So it's really easy to use as a technologist and as a systems administrator, and that really ties in with what we do with Runecast Analyzer as well. And so we have the recommendation sections. We also have the levels. So you've got level 1, which is kind of like, everyone should really be working to level 1. And then level 2 is, if you have higher security concerns, then you might want to have a look at these. But by applying the level 2, the level 2 suggestions, you may lose some functionality in doing so. So just kind of bear that in mind. Is that about right? Have I got that right? Yeah.
That's exactly right. Yep. And it's an extension of level 1, so now you're covering both your bases.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, and if you're doing level 2, you need to do level 1 as well. Obviously, it would be crazy to do it any other way, right? But that's how it works. So yeah, we've got all of this stuff, and again, we've got the information for the CIS Foundations for AWS as well. And we've got things like IAM password policy, preventing you from reusing passwords. And again, this is how you audit it. If you wanted to. This is what happens when I use the MacBook touchpad. If you wanted to audit it by CLI, and then this is how you go about remediating these things. So it's really easy. The information is really usable, and you don't have to put too much thought. You don't have to hit Google to find out how do I change this system setting. So yeah, I really like all of this stuff. It's really smooth and it's really easy to do. And then once you've done all of that, we also have this capability to ignore, which, if it's a compliance thing, please never ignore anything compliance-wise if you're going to be audited, because you will be found out. Believe me. I'm not saying I've been there, but Yeah. Then we've got the export capability, so you can generate a report, and you can take that information back to to your business, to your security teams, to your auditors, or all of these things. We've got all of that information in there. I'm just going to swipe back. I don't think I've got any other questions. I've got another few slides just to run through very quickly. In fact, that slide was supposed to happen before I cut to the demo, so that's, I'm being professional again. Sorry, folks. So just a few key features on Runecast Analyzer. So it's an OVA appliance, super lightweight. It takes up next to no resources. I keep meaning to fix this slide. So we're fully supported Vsphere from 5 all the way up to Vsphere 7. So all of that stuff works. We support Vsphere, vSAN, NSX, NSXV at the moment. NSXT should be coming soon, hopefully. Horizon, it's very fast. It's certified for VMware Cloud on AWS. We've also got the native AWS public cloud stuff. Does all of this stuff on premises on the appliance without sending any data to cloud services, which could be particularly helpful for you from a security and compliance perspective. It's very easy to use. You can be up and running. Nobody has to go on a 5-day long course to use that stuff. We've got a full REST API. We've got a plugin for vRealize Orchestrator, so you can use that to help get from your current state to a fully compliant state with a number of standards. As a plugin for Vsphere web client, so you can see everything within the Vsphere client. And again, we can provide you with insights for VMware and also AWS public cloud. That is the longest slide, and I really hate reading through slides. I'm just going to run through a few of our customers there. So Pure Storage there. There should be a big announcement about Pure Storage coming soon. Oh, actually, while I think about announcements, there should also be an announcement coming out around about VMworld time, I'm told, about how Runecast Analyzer can leverage some more of the CIS benchmarks to really help to secure and make sure your environments are running even more securely for some other technologies as well. But I'm not going to blow that one out of the water just yet, because so that's someone above my pay grade's job. So again, a few testimonials. ProBTP, they were a finance and construction company, and they manage all of these companies. They managed to get much more vision, clarity about what's going on in their environment, and it really helps when you're coming to trying to secure these things. ONI, they're a managed service provider in the UK. They're a small organisation, 75 employees. They've got 100% service uptime for their hosted services, and they get that through Runecast Analyzer. And on that note, there we go, we get to move to the memes. So on that note, yeah, I think I totally killed. I didn't screw any of that presentation up. So apologies to Adam and Michelle, who have both been absolute professionals. And they've not negged me at all. But yeah, so now is the time to get your questions in if you haven't already. We have got 2 that have come in, and I've lost my mouse again. I always do this. So we had a question, less a question, more a point. I implemented the CIS benchmarks using Power CLI, but it was a pain. I mean, I guess I can feel your pain there. There's a number of ways that you could, you could do these benchmarks just by writing a bunch of Python scripts, or you could manually check all of these things. And I guess that's kind of what Runecast Analyzer brings to the table. Is we have this automation that can do those checks for you, show you where you're missing, show you where the gaps are, and then from there you can then remediate those, and then you've got that vision as to, excuse me, as to how your environment looks over the course of a year, because we're constantly scanning, we're constantly showing you where the gaps are. So if you start drifting out of compliance, we're going to show you so you can get back into compliance. And there's a name I recognize. Is there going to be a separate CIS dashboard / plugin for Runecast so I can see how close my environment is to being compliant? Or is that part of the security compliance figure? It's part of the security compliance figure, Andy. So, whenever, this is why I suggest that you only turn on the knowledge profiles that you actually need. If you turn everything on, then your security compliance number goes way down, and it can be difficult to kind of pick out the bits that you're missing. So if you just turn on the CIS, that will then show you, what you've got there. But we can follow up that in a follow-up chat, or I'll catch you on Twitter, because that's normally where I find you. Any other questions at that point, or any other points that you folks want to make, Adam and Michelle?
Sorry, I had to find the mute button. So yeah, if you don't mind, I have a couple of things that
Sure.
I could talk about. So, and these are basically improvements that we're trying to make to security best practices wholesale.
Awesome.
So we have an effort to simplify things a little bit. You know, we mentioned, I think it was the Windows benchmark. You know, it's 1,000 pages or somewhere around there. It's big. So we have an effort underway where we're trying to figure out what's the real set of effective configuration items that we need to address. In other words, is there a way to be threat informed in our defense, right? Like, can we actually do that in some rigorous, repeatable manner rather than just dealing with, not to badmouth security professionals, but based on opinion, you know? Okay,
I think everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, you know, is there some you know, real world data that we can point to that says, you know, recommendation X is something we need to deal with? So that's one thing we're looking into, is how do we become more threat informed? And CIS having 2 of the information sharing and analysis centers, we have some access to actual threat data to help support that. The second thing I'll mention, and Michelle probably knows a lot more about this than I do, is we are trying to work with some of the major vendors out there, technology vendors, not security software vendors, to get, I guess, ahead of schedule with them. So by the time they actually release a technology, we would love to be able to just publish a benchmark on that same day, if that's possible. But that requires establishing a relationship with that vendor, getting in early to their development life cycle, having them let the consensus process into that, you know, and so we're working on that as well.
Legal agreements as well.
Yeah. So, you know, again, it's really all about how do we get, the phrase I like to use is, how do we speed effective policy to implementation? And that's really what CIS is about, and always has been.
Awesome. Anything you wanted to add to that, Michelle? Yeah, I think it's a great point. Is you without bad mouthing security professionals, there seems to be, or my experience is somewhat of a generational gap between how they approach security. There's the old guard who have always done, we must always do things this way because this is the way we have always done these things. And I think the danger of that approach is that, you know, people are thinking, oh, that the bad actors, they don't continue to do things in that way because that's the way they've always worked. They're constantly looking at new ways to attack systems. So that's where, you know, new ways of thinking and new feeds of data are going to become super important, I think. Anything else on that, Michelle? Anything to add?
No, I'm just excited about it. You know, even with that Windows 10 release, right? That 90 days is so, like, a year or 2 ago, I would have not even thought that was possible being at CIS, right? So the way that we've come, and then it's just, people they don't want to wait for security for 180 days, 90 days, whatever. So the closer that we can get down to that day 1 release together and work together, the better. And so, yeah, I just appreciate the opportunity today to talk about CIS, raise awareness, encourage folks to get involved. Like we said, it's free to participate, right? Let your folks at Runecast know what you're looking for technology and coverage, and we're happy to work together.
Yeah, and the URL for Workbench again was?
Workbench. Sorry, .cisecurity.org. We both have it.
It's workbench.cisecurity.org, yeah?
That's correct.
I remembered it. Awesome. Cool. Well, we don't have any more questions. As you can probably tell, I'm getting a little sweaty under these lights here. So, you know, I'd just like to take this opportunity to say thank you to both of you, Adam and Michelle. Thanks for joining us on this webinar and really helping to explain what CIS is doing and, you know, the benefits that they bring to the market, because security is for everyone, right? So thanks so much for that. And
you're welcome. Thank you for having us.
Oh, absolutely. We'll have to do something again in future when we've got some more interesting technology stuff to talk about after VMworld. But yeah, if you're interested in learning more about Runecast Analyzer and you weren't already aware of us, please visit our website at runecast.com. You can sign up for a free 14-day trial, deploy the appliance, kick the tires, see what you think about it. If you'd like to learn more than that and you'd like to set up a deep dive conversation with someone like myself or one of my colleagues, then reach out to us at innovate@runecast.com and we'd be happy to set that up for you. But on that note, I just want to say thank you so much to everyone for attending. We've had a really good attendance here, and we've had very few people drop out after the first 5 minutes, which sometimes happens with these things. So that's great. Thanks so much for joining. We'll see you next time.